Hello, welcome to the Control Your Cash show with Tim Urich and Olivia Kirk. And our guests today are Jason and Liz Peart from JPE Enterprises. And we are so happy to have you here. I think you have a great story to tell, and we would like to share that with our audience to see the potential of what can happen when with a little hard work and maybe some luck.
Yes, thank you, Jason and Liz, for joining us today. We look forward to our conversation and everything that you bring to the table.
This is exciting for us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And would you like to get started with telling us a little bit about your backstory, how you got to where you are, and exactly where you are in your journey, if you will?
Sure. We started our first business in 2015. It was me solo as I bought a tasty cake route, which most people probably don't realize that you can buy a route and have the distribution rights to deliver certain products to grocery stores and Wawas and convenience stores. And it was a small route that I worked for Frito-Lay at the time, and so I was in the business, but I worked for a company. And an opportunity came upon to buy the route and to be a business owner. And luckily, my wife, Liz, supported me in that decision and was able to get into that industry. So that's how it started in 2015.
So,
And then today,
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I know you've got more than one route. So tell us a little bit about how the business expanded and how those opportunities came to you and how you were able to take advantage of them.
Sure. So from 2015 to 2017, it was just the one route. Learning the business, learning about taxes, corporate stuff. And then just networking with other people in the industry. And Utz Quality Foods, which was a snack company, which I had experience with Frito-Lay, was going IO, which they consider that to be like the independent operator. And I was able to secure two routes in 2017. So that went from 1 to 3, hired 2 people. So that was a big change, managing not just myself and one route, but multiple people and 3 different trucks. And so that was in 2017. And then 2018, a bread guy on the street wanted to sell his route, and he was willing to give it to anybody, like for dirt cheap. And I said, well, what do I have to lose? So it was a $3,000 down payment to buy this bread route. And he said that he would stay on and run it for me. So it was a no-brainer. So wow. 2018 was the 4th route. And when we closed on that, Flowers Bakery, whose product we distribute for the bread, Dave's Killer Bread, if anybody's heard of that.
Of course.
Yeah. They said, hey, we have 2 other routes. Would you be interested? And I said, not really, just because of finding more labor and another truck. And they're like, well, what if we make it, really worth your while? And I thought about it, and we said, you know what? We have nothing to lose, because they weren't asking for any money down. And I had lined up another 2 guys from Wawa that worked at Wawa. And they came on board, and we said yes. And I think that's the key thing, is sometimes you're scared to do something, but if you say yes and figure it out later, it can work out for you.
Jason, could it be said that they made you an offer you couldn't refuse, sort of like in The Godfather?
Yeah, pretty much. And I will tell you, when I first bought my first route, it was a tasty cake route. They brought me down to Philadelphia to the bakery, and they had like a council, a distributor advisory council. And, you go with other distributors and, you network with them and you get to see the bakery. And they took us out on the Spirit of Philadelphia cruise, a dinner cruise. And they had a couple guys up from Georgia, which is the main flour. So Flowers Bakery owns Tasty Cake. They bought it in 2011. And up here in PA, the bread didn't take off that well yet. Like it came up in 2012, but their bread nationwide is like one of the top sellers. But in this area, we have a lot of competition, so they didn't get a good stronghold. But the guy in Georgia told me, who I just met him for the first time, he said, buy as many flour routes as you possibly can. You'll be rich someday. So that kind of stuck with me when this guy came up to me and, was willing to give it to me for $60,000, $3,000 down payment. And then Flowers offering the other two. And then they just grew. Wow. And it had to put on more trucks and more people. And so my timing was extremely fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would assume that. And would it be fair to say that, the pandemic might have helped you a little bit as far as business,
Yes.
or what do you think?
The pandemic was a huge winner in my industry. Yeah. One, everybody was staying home and eating more. Restaurants were not doing so well and people didn't want to go out. The kids were home for school for a year and a half almost. So snacks were huge. Bread was huge. And then on top of that, inflation. As all the prices went up, we're based off of a commission basis. So it's based off of what we sell into the store. So each of the products got more expensive. So our commission rate went up along with that.
Who doesn't love an inflation-proof income, right?
Yeah, that's what we joke.
It was.
Recession and pandemic.
And pandemic.
Well, there's an old story. If, somebody's always making money, regardless of what's going on out in the world. And if you recall back in after 9/11, air travel literally went down to zero. And then it started slowly coming back. Well, these major airlines had hundreds or thousands of planes that they couldn't keep them at the airports because the airports charge them almost like I don't know what the word is, but it's a storage fee, or, in boating, they call it a docking fee.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep for an airline to keep hundreds of airplanes at, let's say Philadelphia International Airport would cost them a very large amount of money. So what these major airlines were doing is there was a guy who owned a lot of land out in Phoenix, and it was basically desert land. And because it was so flat, he was leasing his property out to these airlines who were renting the space so they could store their planes. Again, just to underscore that somebody's always making money, even no matter how bad it is out there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like making lemon. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
That's right.
Rent out your barren land in Arizona.
Well, money's always moving, so
Yeah,
trying
absolutely
to get a hold of or catch as much as possible.
So now you've got all these routes. Theoretically, you have more cash flow coming in, but you also, I'm sure that wasn't without its problems. What are some of the biggest challenges that you had to face as you were expanding your business?
Personnel mainly, and trucks, maintaining the trucks, keeping them on the road safe. we've been lucky. We haven't had a whole lot of turnover, but you can't get, all rock stars. So the training and
Right.
mentoring, people and trying to find the best home for them. Sometimes, the guy might have started on a tasty cake route and then he didn't like that, or wasn't a fit for him. So let's try him on a chip route, and, not giving up on people until the very end, I guess, but always trying to figure out a solution.
So what would be some of the, well, let's put it this way. What didn't you know when you first got in business that you wish you knew when you started? Like, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Well, it's been learn as you go. That's for sure.
Right.
When we first started, it was JPE Enterprises, everything under one company.
Right.
And then we attended a couple seminars starting in 2019. It was like real estate seminars, but learning all about business and real estate and investments and applying that to our business, because business is pretty much business. It's doesn't matter if you sell snacks or real estate or insurance. It's all the same principles. So being going from a W-2 employee to running, wearing 6 different hats and always learning on the go and be able to transition has not always been easy, but here we are, start 8 years into it, and finally getting to a good spot where we've made mistakes in the beginning, but now we have we kind of spread it out over multiple entities, which is good for accounting and liability purposes, but there's complications to that too, with banking and getting loans. It's
right.
And that's kind of why we got hooked up with you in the first place, with the whole life insurance policy and infinite banking concepts, and learning to play both sides of the equation, cash flow, but also banking, and try to be a full service, operation.
Yeah. So, our whole thing is all about teaching our clients how to be in control of their cash and be in control of their cash flow. And, you've taken the first step. You and Liz have taken the first step to start that process to be in control of the loan process or the borrowing process. And you'll find as time goes by, if cash flow gets pinched a little bit, it's easy to stop a payment, a loan payment on your life policy. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with a bank, it's not so easy to stop a loan. They're not as sympathetic, let's say.
Right. Absolutely.
So I guess another good question would be to ask is, talk to us about a time where things were a little bit difficult, whether it was from a business perspective or a personal, when you got sort of knocked on your butt from a financial perspective.
Back in 2019, again, as Jason talked about, was besides the personnel and bringing on contractors to run the routes, was also working with the trucks and these vehicles. And we found that, one, it was expensive to get them maintained, and two, people didn't want to. The local garages weren't too crazy about working on these box trucks. And so the thought is that we'd start our own company that would work on the box trucks. So we bought into somewhat of a franchise-like business, so that we can do the maintenance. and be the auto mechanics essentially. And we opened in 2019. The pandemic happened in 2020, and we closed it up in 2020. So it didn't even last a full year, and we lost quite a bit of money in that endeavor. I think it had we had good intentions with it, because even today Jason's running around fixing the trucks on his own. He's learned a lot.
Right.
But I know we kind of lost a lot in doing that. Financially, we lost a lot of money.
I think we got, when you win on the first couple businesses and everything's going really good, you get pretty confident, and you think like you're going to succeed at everything. And, that's not always the case. You can't always have, 5 home runs in a game.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was unfortunate, but also I'm grateful for the experience. Like Liz said, I've learned a lot about maintenance and auto repair that I probably wouldn't have without going down that route. But
right.
And on the backside, we still have a thriving business that is generating lots of cash, and that's the beauty of business. You can take one business loss, and offset the income on the winning business. So, some people call me I pulled a Trump, Donald Trump's airline endeavor that didn't work out, but he just didn't pay taxes for a while.
Let me ask you this: was there a learning experience in that event, or was it just because of the pandemic? I know obviously the pandemic had an impact on it, but looking back on it, was there any lessons learned from that experience?
Yeah.
Well, one, we couldn't really find a good mechanic. I think labor shortage everywhere in every industry is a big deal. And on the route side of things, it's a skilled position, but not like a mechanic. So it's more teachable, where a mechanic, is teachable as well, but, it's more specialized. And finding the right person to do that. And neither of us are mechanics. I call myself a junkyard mechanic now,
I think also, one thing that we learned was that we went into this thinking that we put all our money into it, and then we thought we could get loans and so forth. We thought we could get capital on the back end, and it didn't happen It didn't happen that way. We just, because of our businesses and the multitude of them and so forth, we really were not able to get an SBA loan. And so we were cash strapped from the beginning. And so that's just another example, jumping into something without really, patting ourselves on the back end. I don't think we would do that again and get into any type of business without making sure that we had, some sort of cushion on the back end. So
yeah, it's funny. You don't know the things you don't know until you're in it sometimes. No matter how much research or lack of research there's just things that you don't know until you're in the thick of it. But hindsight is always 20/20. So
right.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's also sort of like, Jason, you didn't mention this, but you sort of alluded to it. It's like you had a little success, so then you have this curse of recent success,
right?
And then you endeavor into something that you really don't know that much about.
Correct.
And then in the process, like when you're starting to capitalize your business, you're taking all of your free cash and dumping it in the business, and thinking that, oh, this will be easy to get, used for collateral, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is, when you're dealing with banks, if you have $1, they can give you up to $1 they could loan you $1 against that dollar. But if you have $1 in business equity, they may only give you like 40 or 50 cents on the dollar.
Right.
because that business is not as liquid as the cash.
Right.
And it goes back to the old saying, right? Cash is king. And unfortunately, we sometimes learn those lessons a little bit, slower, and they sting a little bit, when you're going through those situations. And it's not uncommon where we see a lot of business owners over the years pouring all of their profits back into their business on the thought that, oh, when I, go to retire, I'll be able to get all this money out. And not so fast. It doesn't generally happen that way.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's a little different about the route businesses is, all you really have to do is show up and fill the shelves and fill the product, and customers are going to come buy it. So,
Right.
It's, like you said, we had early success because, all you had to do was show up. And with the ProMock, which the name of the company that we started, the fleet maintenance, you needed to find the customers. And, yes, we had our own trucks, but we're not going to make money. We're going to save money, but we're not going to make money on ourselves.
Right.
And then all the other route owners that are in the same boat as us that need their trucks, they're all cheap and they don't want to, they rather have the wheel fall off and then they figure out what to do. They don't want to be proactive. And I've rescued a couple of guys out on the side of the street, where their tire had blown and they kept driving and the rims all bent. But luckily, we have enough trucks that I have some spare tires, and now I have the skills to go out on the roadside and change the tire, and
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: have you ever had your drivers pulled over and get DOT'd or anything like that?
A few times, but we're actually not DOT because we stay in state, and so we don't cross any state lines. But yeah, they have, and they just usually where you going, where you from, and then they kind of wave them through. But I've had guys drive under bridges with the 11-foot box truck and destroy, the box.
Oh.
Getting that phone call.
I heard that's a problem in Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our area down here.
Getting phone calls at 3 a.m. The guys ran out of gas on 76. And I have to go there with a gas tank and dodge traffic, putting, it wasn't a lot of traffic, it was 3 a.m., but it was at a bad spot. We're holding a flashlight and trying to put 2 gallons of gas in this thing to limp it to the gas station. So,
well, I don't know that there are actually any good spots on 76.
No, not at all.
Seriously, I was going to say there's no better time to have a breakdown than 3 a.m. That road is always jam-packed.
It is.
Yeah. But you never know what's going to happen each day. Like I could get a phone call in an hour saying, I got to go take care of this, or it's 24/7. But
Right. And that's the thing, right? So as a business owner, you're never off.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working in your business or working on your business, you're thinking about it
constantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're always waiting for that call.
Right. Well, now we're in the midst of vacation season, so I cover the guys' vacations, and and then bad planning on my end. I let 2 guys go the same week on vacation, or one guy won a trip and another guy. It's bad on my part, and then I'm scrambling trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to cover 2 routes this week, and it's always an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the key is somehow, some way it'll get done, right?
That's right.
It does.
Yep.
So, Jason and Liz, tell me a little bit about some mentors that have had an impact on your life, whether it be someone directly in your life, someone you follow. I know you mentioned some seminars that you go to for business. Who's made an impact? Because, we could only learn so much. You only want to learn so much from your own mistakes, but it's often easier to learn from other people's mistakes and experiences. So, who has had an impact in your lives?
I guess we started with some of this with Robert Kiyosaki, that, of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast as well, and has a lot of great people on his show that we follow and listen to. I don't know if there's anybody personally that you in the business.
There's a couple guys that had multiple routes prior to me even getting into the route game that I kind of looked up to. And, picking their brain, and, they always said you got to pay the guys, pay them well, like they own it, because turnover will kill you. So
Right.
I think we pay our guys very well in order to keep them. And luckily for us, our timing was really good. So we got a lot of these routes pretty cheap. So we can afford to pay them well and still cash flow, money.
Right.
But we're always, looking on YouTube and the seminars. There's a couple guys that, we developed some relationships with. A guy named Pip Stellick. Stellick, I think. I don't know. But, he had a little bit of his family owned grocery stores in the Midwest. So I was able to talk to him about the route business. And then he also had some experience with Little Debbie routes. So he was a good resource to, and every once in a while we reach out. Like I was saying earlier about business is business, like whether you're doing real estate or what, the same principles can be applied to any business. And so he's been somebody that's been helpful in the past. And then recently we we sold a route in January and ended up buying another rental property in our hometown area here. So we're starting to convert business assets to rental income.
Mm-hmm.
And how's that working out?
Okay. We're still doing some work on it. So we closed in April.
Yeah.
I do have a renter lined up. It's just a matter of finishing the property off and, getting them to move in. But, and we have another rental property that was a house that I owned prior to meeting Liz. So we kept that one. And then we have a couple out of state that we bought through a seminar in our self-directed IRA accounts.
Right.
So
did the real estate come before or after your first route in 2015?
After.
After.
Yeah.
So, I think if somebody said to you 10 years ago, this is what your life is going to look like, you probably would have said, what are you, out of your mind? There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes, it's nonstop go, go, go. And when you think back on things and reflect on what you have accomplished, like day to day, it's like you just keep moving on to the next thing. But, when you do take the time to realize, what you have accomplished already and where you're going, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's awesome
to think,
Well, so there's a concept where you measure backwards. And if you're measuring forward, you're never going to get to your goals because your goals are always moving, right? So if your goal was to have one route and then then or if let's say your goal is to have 10 routes and you got those first 3. Well, you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure because I only have 3 routes. But 6 months prior to that, you had 1.
Right.
You know, but when you measure backwards to see the progress that you've made, and then you sort of take that growth curve or that growth rate and interpolate that over the next 10 years, my gosh, think about what would happen. Like if you look at how many routes you have today versus how many you had 8 years ago, and then you say, well, if I could have that same rate of growth over the next 8 years, that number is going to blow your mind. But but there's a difference. The difference is now you know you can do it.
Absolutely.
And the reason you know you can do it is because you have done it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really the value of all the experience that you're getting being an entrepreneur. And I would say from what I've seen or from what I've heard today, both of you are serial entrepreneurs. Like it's in your blood, and you're not gonna get rid of it because you're always looking for the next, for the next opportunity. And fortunately, you're in a position to take advantage of them as time goes by.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Liz's business or
what's in the horizon someday coming up.
Tell us more, Liz.
Well, I'm a psychotherapist, a trauma therapist. So right now we are actually looking for properties that have multiple acres so that I can start an equine psychotherapy business on the property. So that's the next endeavor that we're kind of looking forward to coming up. So we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. My understanding, and I don't know much about it, but I've heard a little bit that is sort of like the next level in psychotherapy.
It is. It's amazing to use equines as part of partnershiping with them in order to do therapy. It's experiential, something that more and more it's just a growing part of the field. So I believe wholeheartedly in it, and so hopefully we can find this property and move to there, and then that business can be started. So.
Right. So they say the results are fairly convincing, for the patients who go through that.
They are convincing. They are because it's a lot about connection with the horse. Horses are able, because they are prey animals. They have a sense that's a lot broader than even humans. And so they have this connectivity with humans that helps with a trauma person who might, have PTSD and are very triggered by things and having flashbacks and so forth. And horses are very grounding and solid. And again, just connecting. So you can do ground work with them, meaning being on the ground with them and working with them. And you can do some riding. And it's not classic riding like you're going to be doing Western or English riding, but just sitting on the back of the horse and being able to connect with the horse and so forth. So it's a little bit of, if you're going to bring in some yoga, you're going to bring in other types of practices. So.
Right. Well, that's awesome. We wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Liz, what area are you looking to do that in?
Actually, we're thinking of moving back up towards where Jason's from, in that Perkiomenville area. So right now I partner with a farm down here in Bluebell, and I'm able to do some of that therapy there. But we're going to hopefully go up towards Perkiomenville area.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that far from where you guys are?
About 40 minutes.
Okay.
So it's like closer to in between Quakertown and Pottstown.
Okay.
I'm sure you heard of Quakertown.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the goal is to we've always wanted to have property and like a little hobby farm. And, now that Liz is learning and getting into that field, we can, legitimately use the property for business purposes, and her business can help generate, to pay for some of this,
Right.
for the property. So it's all about business is the way to go. I keep trying to tell everybody, recruit everybody, like, college, going to college to get a W-2 is, good for some people, but don't feel that you have to go that route, because there's so many opportunities elsewhere. And if you have your own business, there's a lot of upside to that. So,
Well, there's a lot of upside, but there's the idea of controlling your own destiny.
right.
And as we all know, it's not all unicorns and rainbows.
Right.
But at the same time, there is, the more you do, the better, the more you make usually.
Right.
And so there's always those, that aspect of controlling your own destiny, I guess.
And betting on yourself, like Wall Street, like you can put your money in a 401k or the stock market, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I'd rather bet on another route or putting in life insurance and being able to control it way more and use it to our benefit rather than Wall Street using it for their benefit.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Very well said, by the way, Jason.
Thank you.
I was just thinking about that the other day. How you invest in the stock market, and these are actual companies that are run for your profit. It was an interesting thought process.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit. So tell us, if you had to go back and you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell them about the future? Like, how would you get them to maximize their potential?
I think staying disciplined. Like we all think, like we have a 16-year-old son, and he's working with me 2 days each week for the summer. But he's not, as far as we know, going to be college bound, doesn't have any interest in that. And I kind of made him a deal that I could make him a millionaire by 30 if he listened to what I said. And he's receptive to it. And he's, tomorrow will be day 3 of this summer, job. But, I think we all know what to do, but staying disciplined and doing it, like with saving and, investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in essence, it is like you're talking to your younger self when you put it in the perspective of your son, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think unfortunately, though, history tells us that they say, yes, yes, yes. I know.
Liz, I thought my kids were the only ones that did that.
Nope. And I'm sure we did it too when, our parents. It's frustrating, and it's just nature. I don't know, like natural, but it takes until you're, older to realize, hey, I should have listened to mom or dad.
It's funny, right? There's a saying that when you have a kid, they don't come with owner's manuals, right? And It's the same thing in business. And in many ways, our businesses are just an extension of our family.
Right.
Yep.
It's sort of like your business is like another child. And because it demands a lot of time, a lot of attention, and a lot of nurturing.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Olivia came into your business, right?
Yeah, we never saw that coming. We really didn't. And we there's two different versions of the story. My version is right, but she has a different version.
It's funny. I can't believe I've been working with you for it'll be 9 years in September,
Wow.
which is just astonishing to me. That time goes so quickly.
Yeah.
Even this year, I can't believe it's, this deep into 2023 already.
Almost half over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Time is flying.
So, any parting shots? Any words of wisdom, thoughts, or ideas?
I think the key thing that I think we learned at one of the seminars was, don't be scared to say yes and figure it out on the way. The journey is part of the process.
I love that.
If you say no, I can't do that, or $1 million, no, I could never afford that, or like, there's always a way, and
Right.
there's ways to be creative, and there's ways to get things done, and so if you're negative from the start, it's never going to happen. But,
And ask questions. There's so much. I mean, in this day and age, everything's at our fingertips. Google it,
Yes.
right? So always ask questions. I mean, it's like the teachers used to say, there's never a stupid question, but there really isn't. You need to ask questions and find, mentors out there, and have many. I think that's really important.
yeah, I always enjoy asking people about how they started their business, or I love learning about all that stuff, and being able to network with other people and help each other out, and Robert always says it's a team effort. Robert Kiyosaki. It's
Yes.
Absolutely.
it's not a one-man show. So
Yeah. And I think patience is another. We come across quite a few people that are saying, "Oh, well, I did it for a couple of months and I'm not there." And and in business, there's patience, and so learning to be patient and going through the steps. Yes, we want that big house tomorrow, but we're not going to get there yet.
Right. But if with hard work and maybe some luck, it'll happen.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's really the big lesson in entrepreneurship. You're never that far away from success, and unfortunately, you're never that far away from failure too.
right.
Yeah.
I would go one
As
step
as
further.
business owners, we all know.
Yeah. I would go one step further and add faith in there too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Having the faith in yourself, and that you're being guided on this journey to do the next right thing. Those little moments of silence where you have a ringing in your ear saying, this is your next step, take that next step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
So Liz and Jason, if our listeners wanted to get in contact with you, how would you suggest they do that?
Well, they could always email is always best, I say. I think Jason has about 500 voicemails he hasn't gotten to, so email is always best. So, certainly I can always provide my email address. I'm usually the contact person, and then I can connect with Jason from there. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank
Yeah,
you
Liz
guys
takes
so
care of, she's the CFO.
Yes, yeah, the chief financial officer. Right?
Yeah, I'm the operation guy.
Yeah,
But
and then of course business manager, and the hats.
Mechanic.
Mechanic. So, did you want me to provide you
Yes.
with that email
Yeah.
address?
Sure.
Okay. So the best email address actually for the business is Liz, Liz, at jpedistribution.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. This
Right.
was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
So Jason and Liz Peart from JPE Enterprises Incorporated.
Yes.
Thank you so much for appearing on our show and sharing your story. And I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value from what we discussed today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.